The movie begins with a house burning from the inside. A young girl screams behind the window. Meanwhile, firefighters are trying to extinguish the fire. People get rescued from the burning building along with the little girl. A paramedic asks her where her mother is, but she sits absent-mindedly. The scene changes to a young lady talking on the phone in a much calmer setting. She says she wasn't seeing things and thinks something could have been a prank. She sees her cat near the pond. Soon she hears a splash, making her look in the direction where her cat was. However, it isn't there anymore. Thus she starts to walk, calling out to the cat. Once she peers into the pond, she sees her cat is on land. Suddenly, a hand emerges from the water, grabbing her face and pulling her into the pond. Alas, the cat also gets taken in the same way. We see her phone on the table. The contacts on it are being scrolled through by an invisible force. Following these two unsettling openers, we go into a house party. Our main character, Beth, asks her friend Brian if he could stop staring at a certain girl to help Beth with the food. He says he is a man with needs, and asks if it's a problem for her. He says he can hear her analyzing him in her head. Since she's doing that, she might as well do it out loud. She thinks he is still hurt over Leanne. Plus, she believes he feels if he flirts with the girl he was staring at, Leanne will return to him out of jealousy. When the doorbell rings, she goes to it. Behind the door is none other than the girl in question, Leanne. They go upstairs to talk privately. Beth asks her how the funeral was, to which Leanne replies it was bad. She only wants to attend parties where no one gets cremated. We learn Leanne was at Shelley's funeral. Shelley was the girl who drowned in her backyard's pond. Leanne says Shelley was not crazy and could not have taken her own life. Seconds later, a cell phone starts to ring, prompting Leanne to say it's not her ringtone. Taking it, Beth says it's from Shelley. She wonders who would be calling from the deceased girl's phone. Leanne calls this creepy. She looks at the time of the message to see it is dated Monday. Strangely, the current day is Friday. Leanne listens to the message and gives the phone to Beth, who hears a girl talking on it until she screams for an unknown reason. The situation becomes stranger because Beth says it's Leanne's voice. Moving along, we see a man getting a phone call. He answers it as Detective Andrews. He then walks with a doctor in a hospital. She informs him his sister was out somewhere for more than a week. Entering a room alone, Andrews unzips a bag containing his deceased sister. It troubles him to see her like this. He puts on gloves to remove a red ball from her mouth. The next scene has Beth and Leanne sitting in a college classroom. Leanne hallucinates seeing someone burning outside the window. She also hallucinates seeing millipedes crawling on Beth's hand. One of them crawls into it. Outside the classroom, Leanne tells her friend she hasn't been sleeping too well. At night, Leanne leaves the library to walk alone outside. We see she has an odd aura. She feels that something passed her by, but nothing is there once she turns to look. Perhaps due to being uneasy, she phones Beth while she walks. A bus rides by and Leanne sees a man sitting there with a zombie face. Soon she sees a woman with a baby who has the same type of face, except hers is worse, for she has mouths instead of eyes. She vanishes after a vehicle passes her. Leanne tells Beth the bizarre phone call they received at the party was dated today. She starts to get scared, so she tells Beth her location. Beth says she is going to her now. We see Leanne's strange aura again as she walks on a bridge. She starts to say the words that were on the phone's message. When Beth rushes there, she witnesses how Leanne falls from the bridge and gets struck by an oncoming train. Beth sees a bizarre man behind the opening sections of the passing train. He has the aura too, and he screams in agony. Beth sees her friend lying there, somehow dialing a number while seeming unconscious. Later, the paramedics are at the scene. One of them removes the same red ball from her mouth that Andrews removed from the other woman. Then we see a girl named Taylor at Leanne's funeral reception. She tells a woman that Leanne told her the same thing happened to Shelley before she drowned. Brian is there to take issue with what Taylor is saying. Since she keeps talking about it, he gets mad and loudly tells her to stop. Leanne's parents are in the other room, he adds. Furthermore, he thinks she sounds ridiculous talking about such things. Beth is there to say she heard it too. Brian doesn't believe such nonsense, but he hallucinates seeing the two millipedes crawling on a pillar. He walks away upset. As he walks, he sees a construction worker from a distance, with a zombie face Leanne perceived on random people. Brian sits at a table, and Beth meets him there. He throws his open phone to her. She sees it has a message on it that states it was received on Wednesday at a specific hour. Brian says something on the message prior to it ending quickly. He says this message came 2 nights ago from Leanne's phone. It was the night she passed away. We learn Wednesday is today, and it is almost the specific hour of the message Brian received. He says ever since he got the message, things have been weird. He sees a man with a zombie face walking toward him, yet he vanishes. Brian has had enough, so he starts to walk away. We get the impression a car is going to hit him while he tries to cross the street. However, it's not in the cards for him to go out that way. Beth makes the mistake of yelling to him that he forgot his phone. He returns to her and says the words she heard in the message. Now an explosion happens in the building the construction crew are working on. a metal stick flies out to impale Brian. With his demise, a red ball falls out of his mouth. In the next scene, Beth occupies the police station, telling a policewoman about the strange phone messages. Interestingly, she gets told there were no messages on the phones of her friends. Beth cannot agree. She knows what she heard. We see Andrews is nearby, hearing what Beth is saying. When she leaves the station, he catches her outside. He tells the girl that Shelley interned his sister at the hospital. He also says his sister perished 2 days before Shelley drowned. They both agree there is an odd connection, and he gives Beth his business card. Coming home, she finds mail on the floor. One envelope is quite decorative, having a drawing of a grave on it. The words on it state for Beth to forgive her mother, but she rips the envelope apart and throws it away without reading the letter inside. She then hears a sound, prompting her to go into the room where she heard it. She sees Taylor sitting there with her back to Beth. She cries, saying her number was in Brian's phone. Taylor worries about being the next victim. Thus, Beth removes the batteries from their phones, thinking this method has to prevent them from getting any doomed calls. During sleep, Beth awakens because she hears the ringtone. She goes to the 2 phones without batteries, and Taylor is there to startle her by asking which one is it. Beth collects her phone to see it's not working. Taylor takes hers to see it is operational, even without the battery. It has 1 missed call, that is 2 days from now. Taylor downloads the message to see a short video of her screaming. It causes her to drop the phone out of fear. Later, they both break Taylor's phone and kick its broken pieces into the sewer. Once the friends go to a house, a man is there to greet them as Ted Summers. He informs them he is a television producer who works on a program named American Miracles. 5 years ago, his son suffered from being possessed. He created his show out of a desire to deal with such evil. Ted gives Taylor his cell phone and wants her to show him what happened when she got the phone call. Beth doesn't want to take part in this, therefore she starts to take her friend away from this stranger. While they are leaving, his phone makes the eerie ring. Ted takes the phone, but the girls enter the house. Inside, Taylor tells Beth that Ted could have helped her. Beth replies, Taylor doesn't need an exorcism. Following this, we see Andrews looking at his sister's things. He takes out her phone and it rings. The scene cuts after he answers it. In the morning, Beth sees a note on Taylor's door that states she needs to be with her parents. The doorbell rings, bringing Beth to the door. She gets a flashback of her much younger self looking through a peephole. It is a short flashback that reveals nothing except that something important must have happened concerning someone behind a door. In the present, she opens it to see Detective Andrews. Inside, he says the phone calls occurred. The other detective did not check the phone records. Since he did, he says the calls are there. He links all of them to his sister, which is where they seem to originate. The calls arrived after the caller was already deceased. This prompts Beth to wonder who called his sister. She insists on coming with Andrews to find out. As they are riding, he tells her the call his sister received was from a nurse named Marie Layton. Once they enter her apartment building, Andrews knocks on Marie's door. A woman tells them no one has been there for more than 2 weeks. They aren't getting an answer, so Andrews unlocks the door with a card. They walk inside the empty flat. Andrews plays a message on the landline and hears repetitive talking. He then enters a room where he looks out the window to see millipedes crawling on a tree. We know this is a bad sign to the person seeing them. In the room, he sees a scary doll of a woman with a baby in a stroller. It should remind us of what Leanne saw on the night she passed away. Switching to Beth, she finds a ripped photo that she puts together. A woman is on it with her 2 daughters. Soon the detective approaches her and shows her he found a CD. Playing it on the computer, he sees it as camera footage of the 2 daughters in their room. Andrews goes into the recorded room with Beth, saying the camera should be there. But he doesn't see it. He accidentally scares Beth by pressing an inhaler. It causes her to leave the house. Outside, she tells Andrews she heard the inhaler before her friends perished. At the police station, he says if Marie Layton passed away, she must have done it in another city because he is currently looking at the records of all the people who became deceased recently and cannot find her. Who he does find is a girl named Ellie Layton. Beth says she is the older daughter from the photo she found. Andrews learns she perished from an asthma attack in her flat. He also learns her mom was questioned by a psychiatric nurse at the hospital his sister interned at. The next scene has Ted in a place where he is getting ready to film his program. Taylor is there, meaning she lied to Beth in the note she left for her. Shifting back to the other 2, Beth finds a notebook in a box of files. It teaches them that Marie's daughters were admitted to the hospital 9 times in the short span of 2 months. It reminds Beth of a certain disorder that has women wanting attention and getting it by hurting their. Andrews believes Marie vanished somewhere with her other daughter, Laurel, after Ellie passed away. Later, Beth sees Taylor on the television on Ted's program. Back there, we watch a man talking to a camera. He says spiritual energy exists on the same electromagnetic spectrum that light exists on. Thus, it is no surprise it can travel through phones. Taylor sits nearby, perceiving a woman at a distance. Once someone walks by to momentarily obscure her view, the woman disappears. A man scares Taylor with his sudden presence to give her a phone, saying there is a call for her. The caller is Beth, whom Taylor tells she is sorry. There was nothing she could have done except seek Ted's help. She finishes the call and the man who was talking starts to perform an exorcism on Taylor's cell phone. Taylor hallucinates seeing Christ come to life on the cross. The place experiences a blackout with one of its lights exploding. During this crucial time, Andrews arrives with Beth. Taylor sees someone burning behind the man, performing the exorcism. Despite chaos ensuing, Ted instructs his crew to keep filming. Soon Taylor acquires the aura we saw on Leanne. Something possesses her, and she suffers. When the lights return, everyone sees Taylor lying lifelessly. The red ball rolls out of her mouth. It doesn't take long for Beth to receive the eerie ringtone on her phone. She opens it to see the date is for tomorrow. At the police station, Andrews listens to the message Beth got on her phone. Hearing her voice on it, he breaks the phone before putting it into the aquarium. Subsequently, they go to her house, where he asks her if she's sure she doesn't want to stay with her family instead. She replies her father is deceased, making him ask about her mother. Beth says they don't talk much. Later, he notices marks on her arm and wants to know what they are, but she walks away out of discomfort. He guesses she was 7 or 8 at the time she got those marks. Beth nods her head. We get a flashback of her mom putting out her cigarette abruptly. Her mom was rude to her, bringing the poor girl to... She had to crawl to the corner to escape her tyrannical... The girl goes searching for her father. She gets to a door to look through the peephole like she did earlier, in another flashback. What she sees is a man. He is most likely her dad. Out of the flashback, Beth cries, prompting Andrews to hold her. Following this, he gets phoned by the people at Missing Persons, telling him they found Laurel. She resides in a foster home. In the next scene, the duo are at the home. A woman informs them Laurel was at the hospital when it caught fire, and Marie has not been seen since that incident. The woman brings them to Laurel, who is staring into space due to being Andrews tries to talk to the girl about her mom. Alas, Laurel covers her ears with a toy stethoscope upon hearing her mother mentioned. She presses the stomach of her stuffed bear, and it plays the eerie music Beth keeps hearing on the cell phones. It scares her, forcing the lady to try squeezing information out of Laurel. She starts to be with the girl out of desperation, yet she still doesn't get anything out of her. Outside, Beth tells Andrews they have 4 hours left until she perishes. She doubts they will find Marie in time, so they agree to go separate ways to conduct research. As they ride away, Beth sees Laurel standing by the window. A person with a pale face is behind her. In the library, Beth does research on the hospital fire. On her way to the drinking fountain, she sees a lady with a grotesque face. Soon she meets with a doctor to ask him if he remembers Laurel and her mom. He says he does. What interests Beth is that he says Marie wasn't just at the hospital during visiting hours. She was there always. Riding in a taxi, Beth calls Andrews to tell him she thinks Marie perished in the burning hospital. She believes Marie is still there, and her spirit is moving through the phones. Therefore, she arrives at the burnt hospital. She tries to enter through the front door, but it's locked. We see someone moving in there. Beth tries to use another door, which is also locked. As she walks away, it opens on its own. Entering the hospital, she turns on the lights. However, it hardly helps in removing its chilling factor. She walks, and someone quickly passes behind her, getting Beth's frightened attention. She walks into a room, where she hears the dreadful ringtone. A scary baby sits in a crib, looking at her while holding the phone that is emitting the sound. Of course, there is nothing Beth can do in such a situation, except to fearfully run away. She reaches a locked door and sees dozens of millipedes on the floor. The phone Andrews gave her falls out of her hands before someone starts to drag her away. She sees the grotesque woman with her baby standing near the door. Once she stops getting dragged, she runs for a short time until she runs into Andrews. They try to undo the chains on a door. A hand grabs Beth from behind it, making Andrews help freeing her. The door closes, forming dents from the other side for them to see. Some dents take the form of faces. The duo goes into another room and sees a man there. He instantly uses his power to push Andrews forcefully out of the room. The door shuts, leaving Beth alone in there. She sees a cell phone emitting the ringtone. The time shows her it is only several minutes away from her destined demise. Although she slams the phone on the floor, it keeps playing. She then finds an underground passage that she crawls into. She finds a burnt person there holding a cell phone. It lights up in silence, and she takes the phone to break it. The burnt person begins to come at her, causing Beth to back away in fear. But the person gets on top of her. In the meantime, Andrews finds the same passage she found. Venturing there, he sees Beth with the corpse, who is not lying on her anymore. The next scene has them outside with the police surrounding the area. Andrews tells Beth that Marie had to have his sister's number in her cell phone. Beth has a feeling Marie brought her there to protect her. She wonders why she is still alive, because she is past her destined time of demise. Afterward, we start to travel into the hospital. We stop at the phone getting collected that Beth dropped. It is now evidence. Subsequently, Andrews takes Beth home and she says maybe he can call her sometime. He says he could do it tomorrow. He leaves while she goes home relieved. She sees another decorative envelope on the floor. Soon we see the woman at the foster home, looking at Laurel sleeping with her stuffed bear. Andrews is there to see a drawing of the bear Laurel drew. It makes him carefully take the toy away from the sleeping girl. He opens it to find a CD inside the bear, so he and the woman watch what it recorded in the room of Marie's daughters. They see Ellie used a knife to cut her sister's arm for no apparent reason. At this moment, their mom enters the room to see Laurel is in trouble. She quickly discovers the knife Ellie is hiding behind her back. Marie pushes her to the floor and collects Laurel in her arms, telling her older daughter it was her the entire time. She adds she should have known before she leaves the room with Laurel. Once she shuts the door, the stuffed bear falls, playing the music of the ringtone. Ellie panics trying to escape the locked room and suffers an asthma attack. She tries to use her inhaler, but it doesn't work. This causes her to fall to the floor. She tries to dial the number of her mom. Meanwhile, our attention is brought to a jar containing millipedes and the grotesque doll of the woman with her similarly grotesque baby. Seeing these things in her final moment is how they became the things present in everyone's perception when their doom was approaching. Ellie loses her life during the bear's music, which is how it became the ringtone. After they witness the truth, Laurel comes to them. Andrews tells her they now know her sister hurt her, not her mother. Although Ellie hurt her, she always gave her candy, the girl finally says. She takes out the red candy ball from her pocket. Following this, we see a policeman putting a box of items away into storage. He hears the chilling ringtone and opens the box to look at the ringing cell phone. It shows him a missed call from a future date. Since he hears a lady struggling in the voicemail, he calls Andrews about it. Switching to our heroine, she lies in bed with earphones on. Andrews phones her, but she can't hear it due to the earphones. He leaves a message telling Beth she was right that Marie was trying to protect her. She was trying to keep Ellie away from Beth. She gets out of bed and we see the aura around her. We also see she kept the new envelope beside her rather than throwing it away. She then gets a ring at the door, prompting her to go to it. Seeing it is Andrews, Beth opens it. He informs her of what he learned from the CD. Suddenly, a knock comes at the door. Andrews commits the mistake of looking through the peephole because he gets stabbed in his eye to his demise. Subsequently, all the windows violently burst, pushing Beth back with force. The door opens and Ellie is there to haunt Beth outside of a cellular. As she reaches for our heroine, the ghost of her mother appears to stop her. She traps Ellie into Andrews' cell phone. Having done her job, Marie disappears. The red candy rolls out of Andrews' mouth. His phone dials a number by itself, and Beth hears the phone ringing.